Good luck, Mark.
Well, greetings everyone, and welcome Desert Sands students, families, and community. My name is Marcus Wood. I'm the Senior Director of Secondary Education. We also have the Senior Director of Elementary Education, Mick Wilhite, along with us, as well as our support person from FEV, and that is Jasmine Sendejas. So the question is, what is FEV? So FEV is a free 24/7 live virtual tutoring that's offered to all students in Desert Sands grades 3 through 12. Students engage with the tutor mostly through a chat feature, but they also can communicate through voice. The FEV tutors have background information on all our students, like former test scores, so they can personalize and therefore maximize support for each of our students. They also have our grade level curriculum pacing guides, and other curricular sources such as iReady and ST Math to also best support our students. In addition, I believe it's noteworthy to mention the qualifications of the FEV tutors. Each of them holds a 4-year bachelor degree and has a minimum of 2 years of teaching or tutoring experience. They are also fingerprinted and run through the Department of Justice database, just like our own DSUSD employees. Desert Sands is fortunate to have FEV in our 5th year in terms of working with them. Prior to this past spring, it was mostly with our high schools, but we have expanded it this past spring and continued with it this year to students in grades 3 through 12, which we're really excited about. As mentioned, we have 24 on-demand access to live tutoring. And as it relates specifically to middle and high school, tutors can also provide support in all levels of curriculum, including advanced placement, calculus, and other AP and IB courses. In addition to on-demand tutoring, there's tutoring and support from FEV that will take place during the school day in selected classes and curriculums. For each school, they'll work directly with FEV on targeted services for identified students. For our grades 3 through 5, the focus of FEV is primarily with math and ELA support, but again, through the on-demand features, students can contact them with support from any class. We're excited to work with FEV and most importantly, to offer this to the students in Desert Sands Unified School District. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Wood. That was a wonderful introduction. I really appreciate you both being here today. I mean, he definitely hit on a lot of the services we offer. We'll go into a little bit more detail and we'll show a live demo today of an actual lesson. And of course, we'll save time at the end and kind of discuss some of the most frequently asked questions. And then we'll get you over and all of the information that you need in order to access our 24/7 support team. So let's hop right in. So the first question we get asked most frequently is, what is FEV Tutor? What services do you offer? And so we offer engaging live one-to-one instruction for students in grades 3 through 12. We can offer a customized program design for each and every school within the district, and we are available 24/7. We are device agnostic, so as long as students have access to an internet connection, they can log into their student dashboard and complete their sessions from any device. Of course, we base our lessons on evidence-based program models, and our overarching goal is to create equity for all students. So we really want to see that needle on academic gains start to move, and we want to start to bridge skill gaps and really hone in and focus on students' goals that they really need individually to be successful. And then again, we want to create results that matter, not only for the schools, but for the students themselves. So the first model of support that we offer is our 24/7 live homework help model. And what this is exactly how it sounds. It's available 24/7 to your students, and it's available across all subjects. So students can get help in math, ELA, science, or social studies. And this can be on demand or scheduled. So although we do offer that 24/7 on demand help, students can actually schedule homework help ahead of time. And the benefit of scheduling this homework help is being able to work with the same tutor each and every time they log in. Of course, we can connect to any of the curriculum. I know Dr. Wood mentioned ST Math. This is something we can support, but any courseware where students are logging in and are able to share that with their tutor, the tutors can support those students so they can complete that classwork and that homework that they need supported. We also offer targeted instruction. And so I always say that this is more driven by the teacher or the school. And that's because students are working on customized learning plan that's really based on assessment data that's shared by the district. So our team here at FEV can go in and view this data that we already have access to and start to identify skill gaps or areas where students need to skill build specifically. And so every time they're logging in with their FEV tutor, they're working on this learning plan and they're making their way through that learning plan and really being able to identify, do we need to review certain subjects more often? Can we move on to the next lesson in our learning plan? Because the main goal here is to be able to bridge those gaps and have them move on to the next lesson. Of course, we always recommend that students are set up on a weekly schedule with targeted instruction. And we usually recommend 2 to 3 sessions a week in any given subject area. We do offer flexible scheduling, so 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So students can get on before school. This can be integrated into the school day, as Dr. Wood mentioned, or they can access in the evenings or on the weekends as well. All right, so now we're going to actually go into a live demonstration of an actual lesson from the student perspective. So let me go ahead and hop right over there. Now, students are going to access their student dashboard via Clever. They already have access in that way. So I'm logging in the old-fashioned way, which students can do as well. They would be assigned a username and a password, and they would be able to log in from our portal. However, we want to kind of take that lift off of the students and give them access via Clever. So all they have to do is find the FEV tutor icon in their Clever dashboard and click on it. And once they do, they're taken directly to the student dashboard. Now it's going to be very user-friendly. The students are going to see their schedule at the top. So anything they have scheduled for that week, they're going to see the subject, the day, and the time. Now, if the students have a session scheduled already, they're going to see this button flashing, and it's going to be red at the time of their scheduled session. All they have to do to log into their session is click on this red button. Now, if students didn't have a session scheduled, this button would be more of a solid teal color, and it would say request an on-demand session. And this is how students, when they're logging in 24/7 for that homework help or coursework support, they would simply need to click on that button in order to be paired with a tutor. Now, before we hop into the session itself, I always like to note that all of our sessions are recorded for quality assurance purposes on the FEV tutor side, and that can be accessed through the recent session history tab. So not only is this great for quality assurance on our end, but it's great for teachers, families, for progress monitoring, but it's also great for students if they want to be able to go back, see what they reviewed with their FEV tutor, see how they performed on the exit ticket, and they can always review the recording and the chat script of each and every lesson that they take part in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the live lesson now. And all the student needs to do again is just click on this button, and it takes them directly to the two-way synchronous whiteboard. And this whiteboard is where the student and the tutor are going to do the majority of their work together. Now, as Dr. Wood mentioned, our main form of communication is the chat box, which you see over to the right-hand side. Most students are really comfortable using the chat box. And especially in this day and age of texting and typing, they actually kind of prefer the semi-anonymous nature of it. But we do know that not all students are necessarily successful using the chat box, or they prefer to use it. And so there are a few other features that we will go over during this live demonstration. So first and foremost, a student is always going to be introduced to the whiteboard tools. So these are great for our kinesthetic learners. They are going to use things like the pencil in every lesson. They might use the highlighter in an ELA lesson where they're highlighting text. They have the option to use various shape tools for math lessons. We have a coordinate grid. There's tons of tools and options available for your students. Of course, we have the crowd favorite emojis that students like to use when they're doing good in their lessons or to kind of portray how they're feeling during the lesson itself. We also have the option for students to upload or share their screen directly with their tutor. So if they have an assignment saved on their computer and they want to upload that, they can do that at any time. Or if they simply want to share their screen, they can click on this button and it will let the tutor know that they want to share whatever it is that they're working on directly on their screen. Once we're comfortable with the tools, we will be introduced to the lesson itself. Now, keep in mind, this is one of our targeted instruction lessons. This is a middle school math lesson, order of operations with exponents. But more importantly, this is where the tutor is going to really describe the flow of our lessons. And that is that we use a gradual release of responsibility. We have an I do portion at the beginning where the tutor and the student are really working hand in hand. The tutor is checking for understanding, checking prior knowledge of that topic. And then as they work through the lesson, that responsibility is slowly released onto the student. And at the very end, they're going to be answering a few questions in an exit ticket. These exit tickets are generally 3 to 5 questions in length, and it's really put in place to gauge mastery of a topic or a concept. And this lets the tutor know, as well as the student, hey, are we ready to move on to that next lesson in our learning plan? Or do we need to go back and maybe skill build in a specific area? Once we've been introduced to our topic, then we're actually going to go into that I do portion. That's the very first part of the lesson. And again, this is where my tutor is going to start to check for understanding. They're going to give me possibly some examples, some definitions, depending what type of lesson we're working on. And then start to, as you can see, write the problem directly on the board. So while my tutor is writing this on the board, there's a few other features that I always like to show for our different learners. So we also have a text-to-speech option at the top. So this is great for students who maybe they're struggling readers, or maybe they're auditory learners and they need to be able to hear everything. And so if they click on this button right at the top, it's actually going to read everything aloud to them that is in the chat box via text-to-speech. We also have a conference option in the bottom left-hand corner. This is our one-way audio option for students. And so this is great for verbal learners, maybe struggling typers, maybe some of our younger learners. They can click on this and they can actually speak directly to the tutor. And it is one way. So the tutor will be able to hear their questions, hear their answers, and then they will then type back into the chat box to answer the student. So it's really up to the student at that point, you know, which styles and which options do they need to use to really be successful in the lesson. Now I will go ahead and make a common error that a student might make when solving this type of problem, just so you can start to see what the tutor does in this instance. And so they're going to identify my error and of course ask me to go back and check it. They're not going to give me the answer in the chat box. But you know, I'm thinking that I'm doing a great job, but I'm not sure where I went wrong. And so I'm going to ask for help here. And this is going to indicate to the tutor, okay, this is where we need to skill build specifically. So they're going to take the time and break down exponents for this problem specifically. We do also have a language toggle while they're solving that on the screen. This is great for our English language learners. Students can toggle in between English and their preferred language at any time during the lesson. And it's going to translate everything that you see in the chat box and written instructions on the screen as well. So this is great for comprehension. Students can toggle back and forth at any time to help them be successful in a lesson. And then of course, as I'm engaging, I'm answering questions, I'm asking questions, I'm participating in the lesson, I'm going to start to see my participation points climb. So this is a great motivator for students, obviously during the lessons, but again, as we go back to progress monitoring for families, students, teachers, and even us on the FEV tutor side, we can start to see what was happening in those lessons and how the students were engaging. And again, is this an indicator, you know, do we need to go back and skill build in a certain area, or are we ready to move on to that next lesson? Now, at the end of every single lesson, there is an option for a student to leave feedback. They will never actually have to ask for it at the end of the lesson. It's going to be automatic once the tutor wraps up after the exit ticket at the very end. But the student is going to get the opportunity to leave feedback. They're going to be able to rate their tutor and their session out of 5 stars in total. And then they're also going to get the opportunity to leave written feedback. So you can see that down here at the bottom. And this is constantly monitored by our quality assurance team here at FEV. And we encourage students to leave feedback, and they can let us know, was there something they really enjoyed in the lesson? Do we need to make adjustments for the next lesson? So we're always monitoring these, and then of course making adjustments with our tutors on our side as well. And once we submit that feedback, we're taken right back to our student dashboard. And again, making it very user-friendly for all of the students. And now this is where you can see that button that is no longer flashing red. Students have the ability to request an on-demand session, choose the subject they want to work on. They can upload a file if they choose to, or even ask the tutor a question. So this is great, if they have a math assignment or a reading assignment and they only need help on certain problems, they can go in and be really specific with their tutors. And then once they initiate that session, they will be paired with a tutor in about 30 seconds upwards to 2 to 3 minutes, but typically no more than a couple of minutes when students are requesting an on-demand session. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hop back over to our presentation. And this really takes us to the end. Now that we've had a chance to discuss the services, see a live demo, I wanted to save a couple of minutes at the end for some frequently asked questions. I'll open it up to you, Dr. Wood, Mick, and see if there's any questions that you typically get from students or families or teachers in terms of the services we offer. And while I'm opening that up, I'll also go ahead and put up our contact information on the screen, as we do have a 24/7 support team available to support you at any time.
Great. Well, thank you, Jasmine. This has been a great presentation. We really appreciate the partnership we have with you folks. One question that comes up, and I know you mentioned it, but I think it's worth bringing up, is whether a student has the ability to continue to work with the same tutor, someone that they've worked with, and they start to have a relationship with them. They like how they support them. It sounded like that's an option.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. The tutor and the student, we want them to build rapport with one another. And it's important that they understand the student's learning style. And so for those scheduled lessons, whether it be homework help or targeted instruction, they're going to get paired with that same tutor every time. Now, the difference would be if a student is logging in on demand, they're going to be paired with a tutor that is available in that given moment. So they wouldn't always necessarily be paired for an on-demand session, but during their scheduled sessions, absolutely. And again, going back to that feedback, if students find that they have a really good connection with a certain tutor, they can leave that feedback, and then our team will know to continue pairing them as well for their future sessions.
Great, thank you. One last thing I would like to point out too is, and we run into this question sometimes, is whether there's a limit to the amount of tutoring one student can receive, and there actually is not. We've as a district, we've purchased enough hours, and even if a student is working in a classroom with the teacher through FEV, and that's happening a couple of times a week, they also have the option outside of school, to either schedule tutoring or through the demand feature. And so it is unlimited, as long as it's working for them and providing a good service.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely don't want to, put limits on any student, especially if they're finding success in using FEV Tutor, whether it be just to log in for that homework support, if they're in a classroom with their teacher, and, if they're at home with their families, we definitely want to give them as much access as they really want and need. And so I think sometimes families also ask, is this truly, a free service? And absolutely, it is sponsored by the district. There is no cost to the families, and students can log in and get access as often as they need to. And they can always reach out as well if they have a question about how to get their students started, or if they're unsure how to get their students logged in to start getting services. Our 24/7 support team is here to support at any time, and they can be reached again at this email or at this 855 number, and our engagement specialists will be more than happy to help those families out.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. I'm kind of thinking one or two other frequently asked questions would be what subjects are offered. And I know I touched on this as well, but I always kind of like to reiterate that we do support across all of the 4 core subjects. So math, ELA, science, and social studies. So students can really log in at any time to get support on any of those subjects should they need it. And of course, schedule those in advance as well.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? How about any from you, Mick?
Jasmine, just one question. For elementary students in grades 3 through 5, what is the average? If it's a scheduled session, how long do they usually last? What's the time
That's
frame?
a really good question. So all FEV sessions by default are 60 minutes if they're scheduled. Now we've shortened that depending upon when it's being, if it's worked into the school day, for example. So we know not all school periods or teachers have the capability to offer a 60-minute time frame. And so we've shortened them even down to about 40 minutes. And for the younger kiddos, that might be more of a time frame where their attention span is a better fit for them. And so we can absolutely shorten it. We don't generally recommend any shorter than 40 if it is a targeted instruction lesson. And that's just because we do follow that gradual release of responsibility. And we want to make sure the student has enough time to get through each portion of the lesson before moving on to the exit ticket. We don't want them to feel rushed. And then, you know, there's some instances where a kid might log in a couple of minutes late and then it's shortening the lesson even more. And so typically 40 to 60 minutes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. But on demand, I will also note that there isn't a time limit for that. So if a student logs in and they just have one question on their homework and they're on for 5 or 10 minutes, they aren't being, asked to stay for a 40 or 60-minute session. We want to make sure that they have, options and the ability to log on and off when needed. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I will definitely again reiterate our 24/7 support team is here for you to learn how to get started, to set a schedule. We will also share resources out with all of the schools, such as family flyers and social media posts, different things, so families can continue to learn about FEV Tutor and get access to it when needed. All right, well, I really appreciate, of course, I appreciate both of your time today. And if there are any other questions, please feel free to reach out and our team will be happy to help you out.
Great.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.